Alpha Mind Power Online Live Classes by Srimatha Vijayalakshmi Pandayan. Mobile app Alpha Mind Power.
Namaste. Today I wish to speak about a very important subject, autism, and on a spiritual perspective. So when we look at it with a spiritual perspective, what is autism? Now autism is, I would not call it a disease, but definitely there is some kind of an imbalance there. And the child needs a little bit of special care, we know that. And an autistic child is not interested in the normal things which many other children are interested in. It may not turn and look at you when you call the name of the child. And many times I have come across parents who have autistic children, and most of them have this one question: why has God punished me like this? Why me? And that why me can be a question which turns any situation into a huge burden. And the stress and strain that the person goes through becomes even more. So instead of saying why me, and instead of blaming God for punishing you with a child like that, can we change that perspective? Can we look at the situation in a different way? Can we look at it spiritually? That is what I am going to speak about. Now when we talk about the spiritual perspective of autism in general, what I can say is the theory is like this. Even long back when I started on this my spiritual journey sometime in the 90s, we were told that we are facing the end of one era, and at that time we expected it to be in 2012, but somehow it has seemed to pull on a little more, and another era will begin. Of course we call it the Kali Yuga, and then we say the Kali Yuga is getting over and Satya Yuga is going to start. And some people call it in a different name. The names are very many, but then all of us are able to understand and feel that we are living in a transition period. These are not normal times. Everything is changing very fast. So when we are going through this transition period, this is when we are hearing more and more about autistic children, more and more about autism. If you think about it, 20 years back, I think many of us would not have heard about autism. We wouldn't have known much about it. Even today, they say there is no proper cure for autism. There is no proper treatment for autism, but behavioral changes can be brought about in a child who is autistic, to the extent that when the child grows up, he or she can take care of himself or herself and need not be a burden to others. To that extent, the behavioral changes are helping. But then a total cure, a complete cure doesn't seem to be there. So let us look at this in a more spiritual perspective, not in a medical perspective. So spiritually what we believe in is, as I said, this is a transition period, a very important period on the earth. And the whole universe and many other universes also are watching the earth very intently, and they are excited about it. They want to see what's happening on the earth. A lot of changes are happening. New energies are flowing down into the earth during these times. So the highly evolved souls, the so-called souls who have, we call them ascended beings, who have completed all their births, their entire sojourn on the earth, and they have, you can even say they have attained moksha. Such souls, many of them would like to exist on the earth at this point of time to experience the transition that is taking place, because it's quite rare that this happens. It doesn't happen every other few years. It takes a long time for another stage to come. So many of them choose to be here on this earth during these times and experience what is happening. So those highly evolved souls, they come into this earth and they are born to a couple, and those children have autism. Mostly they say the autistic children are very highly evolved souls, come into this earth for a kind of earthly experience of whatever is happening here. So when a very highly evolved soul comes into this earth, it does not come with the intention of living a normal life where you eat and sleep and then you study and then you get a job and then you get married, you get children. That's the normal life. Now that highly evolved soul is not interested in all these mundane activities. That highly evolved souls want to be by himself. He doesn't want to be disturbed. That is why when you call his name, he doesn't look back, he doesn't turn back. But at the same time, if you see, they are observing what is happening here. And they even say autistic children are somewhere their, the brain capacity is very good in some aspects. So they I was just reading an article. It said Albert Einstein was autistic, Bill Gates was autistic. I do not know how far it is true, but I read it in an article. So those people's the way their brains functioned, somewhere their intelligence was par excellence. But when they were children, they were known to be autistic, is what I read. So that way, even an autistic child has capabilities, talents, capacity to do something else. Maybe it is not the maths and the science that we are talking about, but something else. In some other field, the child is very good. So if you look at it spiritually, then I was speaking about this to one mother. I'll tell you what I told her and how she changed completely. She had 2 children. The first one was a daughter who was about 10, 11 years old. And the second one was a boy who was about 6 years old when I met her a few years back. And that boy was a little bit autistic. So she was so much bothered about it. Even in front of that boy, she was talking to me. She said, why me like this? It is so difficult to bring up 2 children when one child is normal and the other child is like this. So it is taking away all my energy. I do not know how to handle this. All this she was saying. Then I put forth this spiritual perspective to her and I said, look at it in a spiritual way. A very highly evolved soul has come into your womb to take birth on this earth and to live this life in his own way, not in the way we all think we should be living. So don't you think it's a great opportunity? God has not punished you. God has given you a blessing. He has blessed you with a very highly evolved soul, and He has given you the responsibility to look after that soul, to give that soul the life that He wants. So that is a great blessing, and instead of looking at it as a burden, if you start looking at it as an opportunity, as a blessing, then this is no longer a burden, and you will do it happily also, and the child will also flourish when you do it with happiness. So when I said that lady, you could see the change coming over her immediately, and she said, okay, now I understand why God chose me to be the mother of an autistic child, and now I will take care of this child. As you said, I will look at the child as an evolved soul. So you see what a big difference it makes. Instead of looking at it as a medical problem, if we can look at it as a spiritual experience or as a blessing that God has chosen you as the mother or father to look after this child, then the whole picture changes. So that is where the spiritual aspect helps parents of autistic children to change their perspective about the whole situation. And once they do that, instead of being a burden, that child becomes a blessing and a great opportunity. So think about it in a spiritual way.